They lost their father and this transformed them. Real life. When I couldn't control the loss, they learned to govern themselves. Christian and Leo grew up believing their father was invincible, not because he was essentially strong, but because he was always there. He was one of those quiet men who didn't give grand speeches, but held up the world with small acts, waking up early, keeping his word, sitting down to listen when no one else would. For them, their father wasn't perfect, he was steady. And that was enough. Christian was the oldest, responsible, restless, a dreamer. He had ideas all the time, projects he started with enthusiasm. Leo, younger, was sensible, creative, introspective. He saw details others overlooked. Together they talked about the future, about business, about creating something of their own, about not repeating a life limited by fear. Everything seemed possible. Until one day, without warning, without preparation, without goodbye, their father died. It wasn't a long illness, it wasn't a conscious farewell, it was a phone call, a silence, and a void they had never imagined. The world didn't stop, but they did. The funeral passed like a thick cloud, people talking, hugs, phrases that did not comfort. Christian tried to stay strong. Leo didn't speak for days. Both thought the same thing, though they didn't say it. If he's not here, nothing makes sense. At first it was sadness, then exhaustion, then avoidance. Christian began going out more, drinking, pretending he was fine. Leo withdrew. Soft drugs at first, then stronger ones, not out of rebellion, but out of silence, out of not wanting to feel. The projects were abandoned, the goals shelved, the days blurred together. 2 years passed like that, 2 years in which time moved forward, but they did not. Deep down, they both hated themselves for it, but they didn't have the strength to change, because pain that is not faced becomes habit. Epictetus taught something harsh but true. It is not things that disturb us, but the judgments we make about them. They had judged the loss as the end of everything. One day, without prior notice, Louisa arrived, a distant cousin, years living abroad, a recognized fashion designer, confident, serene, different. She didn't come to save them, she came to see them. The first night she observed them in silence. The messy house, the dull looks, the fake laughter. She said nothing, she did not judge them. On the third day she spoke. "I can't change what happened," she said calmly. "But I can stay if you decide to get up." Christian exploded. "Get up? For what? What's the point of anything if he's not here?" Louisa didn't shout, didn't argue. "I can't answer that," she said. "Only you can." That sentence lingered. Louisa didn't give them motivational speeches. She gave them structure, routine, uncomfortable silence. She told them about something she had learned far from home. We don't control what we lose, but we do control what we do afterward. Little by little she began to involve them in her work. Not out of pity, but out of intuition. She saw something they had forgotten. Christian had vision. He knew how to organize, lead, connect. Leo had sensitivity. He understood colors, shapes, emotions. At first they failed. They arrived late, doubted, sabotaged themselves. But Louisa was firm. "I can't carry your pain for you," she told them. "But I can walk beside you if you walk." There were relapses, there were dark nights, there were wordless tears, but something began to change. They stopped running. Christian started getting up early again. Leo started drawing again, not out of ambition, but out of self-respect. They understood another teaching of Epictetus. Freedom begins when you take responsibility for your inner world. They worked with Louisa, learned, made mistakes, grew. The brand started small, then steady, then visible. It wasn't just financial success, it was something deeper, dignity restored. One day, Christian found an old photo of his father. He looked at it for a long time. He didn't cry like before. He smiled with a quiet sadness. "I think it doesn't hurt the same anymore," he told Leo. Leo nodded. "Because now we're not running away." Years later, the three of their names began to resonate. Christian led, Leo created, Louisa guided. The brand didn't just dress bodies, it dressed stories of falling and rebuilding. But even then life did not stop testing them, because just when everything seemed calm, a difficult decision appeared, an enormous opportunity, a risk that could change everything or break them again. And there, facing that new crossroads, the story pauses because we still don't know. Were they truly ready to take the next step? Had they fully healed or only learned to endure? Could they grow without losing what they had rebuilt together? The opportunity arrived disguised as a blessing. A gigantic international company interested in buying the majority of the brand. Enough money to secure everyone's future. Global recognition, immediate expansion, but there was a silent, dangerous condition: to lose creative and human control of the project. Christian was the first to get excited, not out of empty ambition, but out of fear. Fear of falling again, fear of losing what they had built if they didn't secure success now. Leo, on the other hand, felt a knot in his chest. Something didn't add up. The company spoke of numbers, of inhuman pace, of replacing artisanal processes with mass production, of optimizing emotions. Louisa saw it before they did. "This isn't a financial decision," she said one night. "It's a decision of character." That word carried weight. Character. Epictetus taught that when you choose, you should not do so from the desire to avoid pain, but from coherence with who you are. But that is easy to read and hard to live. The arguments began. Christian felt that Leo didn't understand responsibility. Leo felt that Christian was betraying the soul of the project. Louisa tried to mediate, but she was also divided. "What if this doesn't save us forever?" Christian asked one dawn. "What if this is the only opportunity?" Leo answered with a broken voice. "Save us from what? From fear or from ourselves?" That night Christian did not sleep. He walked alone through the city. He thought about his father, about the 2 lost years, about the terror of falling again. He understood something uncomfortable. He was not choosing from reason, but from fear. But he also understood something harder. Fear does not disappear just because you look at it. The next day, Leo had a relapse, not severe, but enough to set off every alarm. Old habits knocking at the door. Old shadows claiming space. Louisa found him sitting on the studio floor crying. "I thought I was already strong," Leo said. "But when I felt like I could lose everything, I felt like I used to again." Louisa sat beside him. "Strength is not never falling," she told him. "It is not lying to yourself when you fall." Christian arrived and saw them. He said nothing, he just understood. He understood that true success was not growing without limits, but not destroying themselves in the process. But the company was pressing. Deadlines, signatures, ultimatums. 3 paths lay before them: accept and sell part of their freedom, reject and risk everything, or reinvent the brand once again at a high cost and with an uncertain road. That night the 3 of them met without shouting, without reproaches, only truth. They spoke of their father, of pain, of drugs, of fear, of purpose. Christian, for the first time, said out loud, "I'm afraid of not being enough without guarantees." Leo replied, "I'm afraid of losing myself if we stop being faithful to who we are." Louisa closed her eyes. Epictetus said that no one is free if they depend on what they do not control, and this decision can chain us or free us. The silence was long. Outside, the city continued the same. Inside, something was about to change forever. The signature was ready, the contract waiting, the clock moving forward. And just before making the decision, something unexpected happened. A phone call, a piece of news, a turn that none of them saw coming and that could redefine everything they believed they had overcome. Here the story stops again, at that exact point where character is tested and the past tries to return. The call came to Louisa, not to the brothers. It was from the hospital. For a few seconds she didn't respond, she just listened. Her face lost color. Christian and Leo noticed immediately. "What happened?" Christian asked, feeling his chest tighten. Louisa hung up slowly. "It's our aunt, your mother," she said. "She's critical, very critical." The past, the one they believed buried, broke in again without asking permission. It had been years since they had spoken to her, not out of hatred, but emotional distance. After their father's death, she had locked herself inside her own pain. Christian and Leo, in theirs, never knew how to accompany each other, never knew how to ask for help. At the hospital, the silence was different, heavy, uncomfortable. Their mother was there, fragile, connected to machines. When she opened her eyes and saw them, she cried without sound. She did not ask for forgiveness. She explained nothing. She only took Christian's hand with a strength that did not seem possible in someone so weak. "I didn't know how to take care of you," she whispered. Christian felt something break inside. Not anger, not reproach, late understanding. Epictetus taught that it is not people who hurt us, but our interpretations. And in that instant, Christian understood that his mother had not been indifferent, she had been broken. Leo said nothing. He went out into the hallway, took a deep breath. The smell of disinfectant reminded him of the worst days of his addiction. His body trembled, the impulse returned, the desire to escape, but this time he did not run. He stayed because he had learned that not every impulse must be obeyed, even when it screams. That night, Christian did not go home. He stayed sitting beside his mother's bed. He thought about the contract, about the company, about fear, about how he had tried to fill emotional voids with external control. He understood something painful. He had wanted to secure the financial future because he had never secured the emotional one. Louisa watched everything from a distance. She saw how the brothers grew not when they won, but when they faced what they had avoided for years. The next day, the company called again. This time harsher, colder. "We need an answer today," they said, "or we move forward without you." Christian hung up. He looked at Leo. "Before, I would have said yes," he confessed. "Today I don't know." Leo answered something he never would have said 2 years earlier. "Maybe we don't need certainty. Maybe we need dignity." Louisa felt a silent pride, not for the brand, but for the process. But the universe had not finished testing them. Their mother worsened. The doctors spoke of difficult decisions, of probabilities, of accepting what cannot be controlled. Epictetus said that serenity arrives when we stop demanding that life be different from what it is. But accepting does not mean surrendering, it means acting from truth. Christian faced an even deeper decision: stay and accompany, or travel to close the deal that could change everything. Leo, for the first time, was the strong one. "I'm staying," he told him. "Whatever happens." Christian looked at him. He saw something new in his brother. Temperance, not absence of fear, but mastery over it. The contract was still waiting, their mother was still fighting, the brand stood in fragile balance, and the brothers, for the first time, were choosing without running away. The story was moving toward an irreversible point. A decision was about to be made, and that decision would define not only success, but who they would be when everything was over. Here we pause again. Just before the final crossing between ambition, love, fear, and virtue, Christian made the decision without drama, without speeches, without escape. He did not travel, he did not sign, he did not ask for extensions. He stayed. He stayed because he understood something he had never fully grasped. Nothing external is worth it if it pulls you away from what is essential. Epictetus had said it centuries earlier with relentless clarity. There are things that depend on us and things that do not. The outcome, the fame, the money, the recognition never depended on them. The way they acted did. Their mother died 2 days later with both brothers holding her hands. There were no reproaches, no unfinished accounts, only a silent, strange, almost sacred peace. In that final breath, Christian and Leo let go not only of their mother, but of the broken version of themselves they had carried for years. They cried, but they did not run. The pain came in full, without anesthesia, and even so it did not destroy them, because now they knew how to remain. On the day of the funeral, Louisa watched them from afar. She did not see defeat, she saw dignity. She saw men who had learned that strength is not hardening, but carrying the weight of life without breaking inside. Weeks later, the international company closed the deal with another group. The money was gone, the opportunity too, but something unexpected happened. The story of the brand, not the commercial one, but the human one, began to circulate. Designs born from grief, from silence, from respect for the process. People were not buying clothes, they were buying truth. Artists, psychologists, athletes, ordinary people who had gone through losses began to write to them. They did not ask for discounts, they asked for meaning. Louisa proposed something different, not to grow fast, but to grow well. Christian found his place in strategy and vision. Leo, in creation and detail. They no longer competed with the world, they collaborated with it. The brand became profitable. Yes, but above all it became solid, without debt, without exploitation, without internal betrayals. Years later, at a small conference without cameras, Christian said something that stayed with those who heard him. We lost our father. We lost 2 years of our lives. We lost a multimillion-dollar opportunity. But we gained something that cannot be bought, the ability to choose with a calm soul. Leo added, when we stopped running from pain, pain stopped ruling us. Louisa smiled, not as a famous designer, but as a cousin, as a guide, as a witness to a silent resurrection. They were never invincible, they were never perfect, but they learned to live free inside, even when the world trembled. And that, as Epictetus taught, is the only victory no one can take from you. Because in the end it is not the one who controls destiny who triumphs, but the one who governs himself. Are you interested in Stoicism, personal growth, and life stories? Then subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any video. And don't forget to follow us on all our social media to stay connected with our community. Join the family of Stoic Stories.